all we're saying is, our officers did not see any open carry. They didn't see anyone with any weapons, anything like that.
Well, okay, there you go.
If I haven't issued enough disclaimers, I'm going to do it one more time. I'm on the left. The activist I'm speaking with and I do not agree politically. I do not support her causes or even tactics, but she, along with the protesters, have definitively been mischaracterized in this story. This was our conversation. Because I was looking at your video, I ran an enhancement on the video so that you could see better because the video is very dark. And once I ran that enhancement, I noticed that nobody at the protest had guns. And I also noticed nobody cussed for the duration of the 30 minutes or so that you recorded. Were you live streaming?
I was live streaming, yes.
Okay, so that was a Facebook live stream. I took the video, I lightened it up, and I could see very clearly there were no long guns. Was there anybody that was open carrying or had guns that you saw at your protest in front of the Secretary of State's home?
No, there were no guns at all that I saw or knew. Now, obviously, it's an open carry, concealed carry state, so there could have been, not to my knowledge. No one talked about it. No one brandished any. There was none of that. We were folks that wanted our voice to be heard.
You used the word brandish. That's not what I'd say. I'd never see in the video a single person brandishing a gun, and that includes officers. I mean, obviously, officers are armed. Also, there was security personnel, it looked like. Who was there?
So the first car that rolled up was a security car of some kind. It was not the police. And I went up to the window, and he basically told me to go back to the peaceful protest we were having.
Now, home security, possibly like a domestic security that you see in neighborhoods, sometimes independently patrolling? Did it seem like it was a branded home security officer?
I didn't see what was actually on the car. I just knew that it said security.
And did that individual eventually come out? I know that there was somebody standing in the doorway of the Secretary of State's home. Did that officer come out? I should say security guard come out?
Yeah, so what he did is he walked over to the front door. Looked like he may have gone up to the door, knocked on it. Seemed like they were trying to get her to answer the door. She never answered the door, never looked out the door. And to be honest, I didn't think anyone was home. I thought we were basically there to an empty house. I thought maybe she was at a holiday party of some kind. It was completely dark.
Wow, so you never saw anybody in a window or open the door?
Correct, no. And the security guard basically stood there taking pictures of us and just stood there. And it looked, like I said, he had his phone,
When did the police arrive? Because several police officers are seen halfway through your video at some point.
So shortly after the security guard got to the front steps, I would say maybe about 15 or 20 minutes later, two officers came up and they stood off to the side, kind of observing us. Again, we were peacefully protesting. We were singing patriotic songs.
The twilight's last gleaming.
Caroling, Christmas carols. And then they approached one of the people in the center that had been singing and asked if he was the leader. And the guy said he was not the leader. This is all on video. I'm standing right there. And he said he's not the leader, that we are just citizens that want to be heard. And then he
They're so sweet in Michigan.
said to the officer, I know that the curfew is at 10.
Michiganders are the best. I love my
So
people.
we'll be leaving shortly. And I make a comment
In
that,
California, we'd be throwing down right now.
I said, Michigan people are so nice. If this was in California, we'd be throwing down by now. I mean, it's just such a different climate. And, they were very respectful to the police officers. The police officers were very respectful to us. And they just said, okay, and they stood off to the side, waited till we were, finished basically saying the things that we felt were necessary, since we have not been given a vehicle route due to the COVID mandate. And then we left. And the officer was like, okay, kind of like, okay, if you guys are leaving at 10, we're good.
From what I saw on the videotape, and I've watched it 3 times to make sure that I'm not imagining something. The full point of the Unblocked podcast is right now I think we're living in a bit of an age of misinformation because sides aren't talking to each other of the political spectrum. And so the idea of the Unblocked podcast is people, instead of blocking each other, actually talk to each other. And what I noticed as I watched the video is that the reality that's being reported, I've seen articles that are talking about armed protesters, and they're making associations that make us think that this was a very dangerous protest. And then I watched the video, and the reality of what's on the street and the screen reality seem to be 2 different things.
Jocelyn Benson said a large group of armed protesters showed up outside her home Saturday night, drawn by the state's decision to certify President-elect Biden as the winner there because he won there. She said that she and her 4-year-old son had just finished putting up Christmas decorations.
Do you think that there was a possibility? I'm trying to figure out where the idea came that everybody had guns. Now, the police officers had guns, correct? And the security guard.
To be honest, I would imagine they did. I didn't notice any. It wasn't what I was looking for. I was actually, talking to them, busy live streaming, and that wasn't something that I actually noticed. But no, this is a basically, our actions were lawful and peaceful, and that was confirmed and stated by law enforcement. So in the article in the Free Press, again, if people read the article, watch the video, the law enforcement says there was no problem, no arrest, there was no issues at all, and it was peaceful. Now, I made a comment on my Facebook page that this officer is probably going to lose his job because he spoke the truth.
This is the problem right now. Is parsing the truth and getting the truth out there. One of the first clips I watched was on CNN, and they took the 10 seconds. I guess you could say it was the most aggressive part of the protest because he yells felon and murderer, both of which I don't understand. For CNN to take just those 12 seconds and then try to characterize an entire protest from those 12 seconds and have us believe that there's some sort of terroristic push because you are supposedly armed. I'm sensitive about this because I've worked in the media for 17 years. I've been behind the camera and an editor, and I believe that we should portray the stories and what is happening on the street ethically. And to cherry pick 12 seconds and try to characterize, did they reach out to you, CNN?
CNN did not reach out to me.
So CNN plays 12 seconds, the most aggressive 12 seconds of somebody yelling in the megaphone. They do not reach out to you, and all across the media, I mean, if you Google Michigan Secretary of State right now, and you go to the news section on Google, you will have article out of article after article, Esquire, Rolling Stone, of course, Daily Beast, MSNBC, they all say armed protesters. Every single publication, and I've never seen, the New York Times doesn't have it in their headline.
13 cops, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cop cars.
Every other organization that I looked at jumped to the conclusion because somehow it got out that you all were armed. And I wonder if it's just because nobody took the time to enhance the video. It's a simple trick. I'm a cameraman and an editor, and any of us that have an editing system, we know how to throw on a brightness contrast filter and a color correction filter, and we know how to boost the levels and make video lighter. And if anybody had done that, they would have been able to see more clearer that nobody was armed. But we need integrity from our media, and we need to be able to believe what we see And how can we, if an entire story like this is completely butchered across the entire spectrum of the web? Can you just tell me, I'm curious, what was the first headline that you saw when did you realize, oh my gosh, not only is this story being spread across the country, but it's being spread with false headlines and false information? What was the first headline you saw?
Armed protesters alleging voter fraud surrounded. That was the Washington Post. I'm looking them up now, but it was the Detroit Free Press. So I have to try and find that one.
Now, what I'm noticing is a lot of the info came from a press release or a statement that I saw that was tweeted from the Secretary of State herself. Secretary of State Benson did tweet a statement, and as I look it over, I'm seeing that she's the one that used the language, armed individuals. So the question becomes, how did the Secretary of State get information or misinformation, in this case, that you all were armed? And did she even bother to look at the video if she didn't look out her window? Because the story is that she was with her kid and about to watch The Grinch. So if she was home, then I'm curious how she got the information she got. And here's my other question. If the security guard that walked up to the door never then, as far as you could tell, was communicating with Secretary of State Benson inside the home.
Correct.
You never saw, the door was never opened. Was the security guard on a phone?
Yes, they were videotaping. The security guard was videotaping us, so his phone was pointed towards us.
So he wasn't talking on it. In other words, he wasn't talking to the Secretary of State or anything.
No.
I wonder if, look, I like to give people the benefit of the doubt. This seems a huge misinformation disaster, and that's what I'm scratching my head about. But I wonder if somehow people thought, because it's dark and the video is dark, when I enhanced the video, only then could I see the white letters that said police on the flak jackets law enforcement was wearing. But if you didn't do a visual enhancement of the video, maybe you look at that video and you think that the police officers are militia protesters, which would just be,
that's pretty funny. I totally understand, and I totally understand you stretching to give her the benefit of the doubt. However, nice try. The man that was standing in front clearly was security, and he was in the light of, her night light and her porch light.
So this guy, I don't know, is he videotaping us?
The officers, they were not part and parcel of our peaceful protest. They were standing to the side because they knew that there was nothing we were doing was illegal. We had protected constitutional rights of a peaceful protest. We were lawful. We were peaceful. And he knew that, it was a matter of time where we were going to, feel like our voice had been heard, or at least we had made the statement that we needed, that you need to listen to the Michigan voters, and that there is indeed a big, big problem with this election, and that you are an elected official and that you need to do your job.
For 2 days, we waited for response from the office of Secretary of State Benson. The spokesperson you heard from at the beginning is a civilian, no less, I was told, by the Detroit Police Department. They were first on the scene the evening of December 5th in front of Michigan Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson's home to monitor the protest activities. That the protesters were unarmed was also confirmed to me by a spokesperson with the Michigan State Police, who you will see have shown up by the end of the 30-minute protest video, if you are watching on facebook.com/unblockedpod. Please subscribe. We're also on Apple Podcasts. That protest is not one I support, but as Unblocked Podcast is about talking to the other side, you just heard from Genevieve Peters. We will keep asking the big questions on Unblocked Podcast.